Hello everybody, I'm Madknight64 and welcome back to Gloomhaven. So, last time we were up in the mountains doing a mission to figure out more about the artifact and we unlocked another boss mission. With that though, we're actually going to go back to Gloomhaven. We still have some work to do there. If you notice, I may have not be talking to the way I'm moving in the video. It's because I completely screwed up all my audio in terms of the game itself. So we did not succeed on that front. So right now, I'm going to give you a high-level overview of kind of the stuff that we did, things like that. We'll jump around a little bit, but that's why things are going on. We're going right into the event. So, as, you know, we got to work towards the city. We're heading towards the DLC, but we always got to do the event first. To give you cliff notes, essentially, a shady dude comes up and tries to make a deal with us, haggle. And I decide that, you know what? It's okay with this man. We're going to make a deal with him. Why not? What could go wrong? He takes some money. I got plenty of it. We're good. Well, I don't have plenty of it, but we'll be fine with it. And here's my crew again, trying to go out into the world, trying to figure things out, and they just keep getting stopped and having to do job offers. You know, it just doesn't seem to go against what we want. You know, we want to be helpful. We want to try and help people, not assume greedy, so we just accept the job offer, not talking payment, and it hurts our reputation.
You burst into Professor Haltrip's office, holding a vial of the black liquid. The old Quattro looks understandably alarmed, but you waste no time in explaining the situation to him, until a determined look settles on his face. "Once again, it's up to me to save the city, eh?" he says, standing from his cluttered desk. "And we don't have the luxury of time. I think we can throw together some tests, but it won't be easy. Or pretty. We'll need to inject a number of specimens with variations on this toxin and observe how they deal with different stimuli. With enough data, we should be able to formulate a concoction that will arrest the transformation." He exits his office and leads you down the hallway to his lab. "The stimuli will be where you come in. I found your last foray in my lab to be very helpful in expediting the data collection, so I'll need something similar here. It will be more controlled, of course, but we need to collect as much data as we can, as quickly as we can. So we'll be dealing with large groups of specimens all at once." Haltrip passes the black vial along to a new assistant, then directs you into a small laboratory. After you enter, he closes and locks the door from the other side. "Not to worry. The tests will be over before you know it. Let's be..."
So something important about this I did not realize at first was the setup phases, how those worked within this mission. As you can see right now, basically no one's on the board except for my characters. We're going to run in, do some stuff to try and prepare for the next phase, And I didn't really realize what that timing was going to be in terms of the monsters spawning. You can see the number of monsters, but wasn't sure if it was delays, things like that. So I just tried to get set up in a kind of fashion that got everybody in a position to kind of tackle their own little group of monsters. So going through the dungeon, we learned some important lessons along the way. Mainly one of them, rats explode. You know, you hate to see it, but it's just a lesson you learn. You're like, oh, okay, so these guys hurt if I kill them. A little unexpected, but we can deal with it. So, we fought our way through the wave, and I noticed something that made me nervous the whole time was the amount the goal bar had filled up with the number of kills I got.
Bangs on the glass of the window between rooms and gives you a thumbs up. Get ready for phase 2, he yells emphatically. He is much happier than he should be, given the circumstances.
So then I'm like, alright, well, you know, we can do this. Phase 2. Didn't realize I had another setup step, though. So I had a lot of cards I burned unnecessarily because I thought I was jumping straight into the next phase. I didn't realize there was a lull between phases. So we started working our way through the next phase, cracking skulls, doing what we do, and then we learned the horrible truth about this phase. There are other monsters within inside these rats. It's gonna make our whole life a whole lot of fun. So, keep chipping away at this. We're making it through phase 2. We've been killing things. The, guys exploding was a little unexpected, but it's all good. We have a rest turn after this. We can, save up. We've just got 2 guys left.
Prepare for phase 3, Altrip yells. We got a lot of good data on the last one, so with any luck, this next test will conclude the study.
So we get confirmation that it's just 3 phases, but then I realized that my rest turn isn't really a rest turn, and that the counter started when the last rat died, not when I killed the demons that had spawned from the rats. Which is not great for me. It was about during this phase I realized I made a massive mistake early on. One, in terms of kind of understanding the timing. I burned some cards on rest turns I didn't mean to. And I burned in a big attack AoE card that would be nice because I didn't realize I'd be stuck in just this one room with Valdrax. So kind of realized that my fate was sealed at this point and we weren't going to do that because sometimes those black imps came from red imps, so you had imps spawning imps, and I realized that though they didn't all have a lot of health, I really had burned a lot of my damage spells early on that are massive AoE ones, and that they'd all be joining up and grouping up, and there were a couple better ways I could have handled this. Pretty much, though, I'd ended up in a party wipe my first go around. I was not prepared and made some mistakes based on the scenario, but you live and you learn. I did what I could. We tried to take guys out. We took out a few. We kept getting bodied pretty hard, though. Until finally, we just ran out of cards. We'd mitigated too much damage. It was all over. But, learned lessons. However, sometimes even in failure, you sometimes win. With the event that occurred, I got a new side quest because we accepted the job and then the job appeared later and on the board. So we got something to do later in the game. I also decided, you know what, since we're back in town, we can re-up our blessings just in case. We want to go in as strong as possible. So, just decided to re-up the blessings, which, because we had spent just enough money, we actually upgraded Gloomhaven's overall wealth for just donating to the church.
I hope we understand each other, Mr. Scrim. A well-decorated soldier stands in the center of the town records building as you enter. The librarian, Dominic, seems rather small by comparison, but he's not at all intimidated. "Oh, I understand you perfectly well," Dominic says, "but I don't think you're understanding my position. I am trying to find the truth." The soldier looks up as you approach, then looks back down at the bearded man. "Just think about what I said." He begins to gesture around him as he walks towards the door. "I'd hate to have to tear down this whole place." Dominic waves at you grimly. "Hey there. Glad to see you stop by. Who knows what sort of short-sighted, lowbrow lengths that thug would have gone through to get his point across." He shakes his head and then fluffs his beard. "It's just a difference of opinion, though. In my research, I've apparently asked the wrong people the wrong questions. It's amazing how reactionary, thick-skulled people can get about what's written down on a piece of parchment. It's not like anyone's going to even read this little text of mine." Dominic coughs. "Well, except you, of course. Is that why you've come by? I've finished up the broad history if you wanted to take a look." As human civilization expanded across the continent, two major changes occurred. The first was that merchants grew into prominent positions within the cities due to wealth gained from lucrative trade routes, both within human civilization and with other races. The second change was that the wilds, which were once so dangerous, became much less so, especially in the center of the continent, as areas were converted to farmland, and peace was made with the surrounding races, in one way or another. The military taxed the trade heavily across the continent, and the merchants grew more and more resentful, as larger portions of their earnings were demanded for less justification. The military did nothing, and grew fat off the work of others. This all came to a head in the capital, when the leader of the Merchants Guild, Simon Wainwright, organized a coup of the city's military by hiring an entire army of mercenaries with the guild's money and taking control of the city's keep. Very little force was actually required, as the city guard was outnumbered and woefully undertrained. The siege of the keep lasted less than 2 days, not nearly enough time for reinforcements to arrive from the surrounding cities. Once in power, the Merchants Guild quickly won the favor of the citizenry with sweeping social changes, allowing for a great many freedoms and relieving them from the heavy taxation of the military. Once the commoners were on the side of the merchants, there was little hope for the military of regaining control, at which point the mercenary army was no longer required, and the military was offered a decent salary to continue keeping watch over the city. After the capital was reformed, the merchants' revolution spread outward from there, quickly deposing the militaristic rule across the continent. As of the writing of this document, only one city remains under the governance of a military presence: Gloomhaven. Next, I really want to get into the development of Gloomhaven and this clash between the merchants and the military in the city, Dominic begins. But as you can see, the military isn't all that happy about it. Dominic hesitates. "I was hoping you could all do me a favor, actually. In order to continue to put my pen to paper, I think I'd better get the backing of a powerful merchant to keep me safe." They're all sympathetic to me getting down this history, of course, but they're a little hesitant to publicly support the venture. I'm hoping you could do some convincing for me. You might have the most luck with Councilman Greymare.
with that little bit of story unlocked and a new mission, we headed back to the mission to try again. And hit another encounter. A very similar sounding encounter. I mean, different people involved and stuff, but kind of the same options, like demand payment up front or accept the job proposal. So I decided I hadn't learned my lesson, because who doesn't turn down good work? You know, just decided to go for it. And that was it. Didn't seem to do anything. We just did work. So, having done the mission before and kind of understood a little bit better about what I was trying to obtain, I ended up tweaking my kind of approach to this, as I knew everybody would come and rush towards my characters. Instead of being up close where they were spawning, I decided to hang back a little bit so I could just do more AoE and range damage as they came in, so then at the end of the day, I had more spells and stronger hitting spells for the third phase. So things were pretty uneventful through the first two phases. I knew what was coming. Basically, kept my cards as much as possible, tried not to burn as much as I was going, and deal a lot of AoE to take guys down quickly. I still ended up with 3 of these guys in the third rest phase, but everybody was in a pretty decent position, so it was a little less concerning overall getting into the third phase. So this is my biggest mistake I made in my first round. I saved the flurry of axes for Valdrax because it's a range 3 circle that just does a ton of damage if you're willing to take 4. So this attack really changed phase 3 compared to the first time I went through it, because he does a massive amount of damage. Then on top of that, the rats also explode and do a massive amount of damage to each other. Really changed the flow of the fight, as now I had taken down the majority of the enemies in the third phase, versus the last time I was just getting overwhelmed. Pretty much after that big hit, it was just cleaning people up, cleaning up the bad guys, slowly working them down, whittling them down. Occasionally the black imps would spawn off the red imps that you killed. And at the end, I actually had a full turn to just go grab gold with 2 of my characters and wrap up the mission. This was difficult. Definitely made some mistakes in this mission on my first go around. But the second time it was a lot easier, kind of knowing how the flow of the combat, especially that you knew you were staying in that one room, so you could focus on AoE damage a lot more than typically where you have running damage.
With the final test complete, Haltrip bursts into the lab. You almost turn your weapons on him after what he put you through, but his exuberance is infectious. There it is, he cries. That last strain, that was the key. I've got my assistants working on it now. An agent that will completely neutralize the toxin's effects. And once it is ready, we will use all the resources the university has at its disposal to distribute the agent across the city. With luck, we will avert this crisis in time. His face bunches up at the edges of his mouth in a smile. He beams with wrinkly pride, and you almost crack a smile yourself, before a thunderous boom reverberates through the building. Haltrip's smile disappears. That came from the southeast, Haltrip starts. It sounded like a lightning strike, but it's not even raining. You rush outside, just in time to see a pillar of red light shoot down from the sky and connect with the old wall gate. Seconds later, another boom echoes across the city. This is undoubtedly the work of Roland and his blood god. What other tricks can they possibly have up their sleeves? There's only one way to find out.
Alright, with that we completed the quest and unlocked 2 missions. One was from the event, the one I thought that did nothing, and another mission. we decided to give the tower shield to Valdrax, as he's basically the guy that is up front taking damage. It actually gives 2 shields instead of 1. It's just basically better than the heater shield I had, so swapped it in. And Fluffles got another perk, which we pretty much knew automatically what we were going for. Seraph got to level up. In terms of this, there were some interesting cards. There was nothing that really, like, pulled my attention one way or the other. The second one was kind of not really an interest to me, so I opted to go for something else. Kind of looked at the rest of my options and what may be useful, what may not be useful. Ended up kind of taking one of the older cards I left behind because I decided, you know, that's probably out of the new ones. They weren't very useful for my build and deck, and might as well get something that I could toss in there every once in a while. Also got to pick a new perk for Seraph, so decided to toss in another, like, damage plus card that created an element and did some damage, which was pretty awesome overall. Because at the end of the day, I got 3 new missions unlocked. 2 were side quests. 1 is another boss, and kind of realized that Valdrax now has 4 bosses he can go kill. So there's the 3 on the outer map in terms of Jaxera, there's the 1 in the mountains, and there's 1 in the Dagger Forest, and there's the 1 in the city. So it's time for him to go make some damage and work on his quest. He's been tanking for a while, but he sees his objective, so he's going to go for it. I also remembered that Fluffles could retire right now. The only problem was I didn't have the money for it, but he had a ton of items that he was not using because he'd been around for a while. So Fluffles was like, you know what? We can get rid of some of the items that are there and augment the deck one last time, which was enough. So, just in case there was a mission or something, I was seeing what ones that were available to me, because I wasn't sure if there was going to be something else, or if it's just like some of the other ones that are retired, where it's just, that's it, you finish the objective, they're done. So, add in some poison, and unfortunately triggered Fluffles' retirement. So, goodbye Fluffles. Like, this is something you never could have dreamed of. You're pretty sure you can do almost anything, but there's no point in being pretty sure. You want to find out for yourself. It is time to leave Gloomhaven and your newfound abilities, and spend life trying to do everything, everywhere, but you'll come back soon. Next time, you bet there will be even more Acer willing to push you even further. So, that's the end. Retirement is complete. And it unlocked a quest. That was the interesting one for Fluffles, is that it did not actually unlock a new character or anything. They got a new quest unlocked. With Fluffles' retirement, I promised myself I was going to build 2 more mercenaries and try a party of 4s. See how that turned out for me. So, working through this, we've done the Tinker, we've done the Mind Thief, we've done the Brute, we've done the Cragheart. We currently have a Spellweaver up, so we're not going to do a second Spellweaver or a second Berserker. So, trying to figure out what to do next, and I ended up doing Sawbones as one of them. They were a class that I was kind of interested in, thought they were unique when I unlocked them, so we've met Ted, the Sawbone. And he went for the Zealot of the Blood God. I thought the objective was very interesting. The fact that he had to become exhausted 12 times as a sacrifice to the Blood God. The really cool thing about being able to like start new characters at this point is I get a lot of auto level ups in terms of just instantly getting to move the character, not from like level 1 and having to start fresh, but being able to jump in at a higher level because of how much Gloomhaven has grown as I've progressed the campaign, which makes it nice because it's always rough having to start over, so it's always nice to get a couple of things right off the rip to kind of make your characters just a little bit stronger, because we are further in the campaign and there are harder missions. With Ted, I tried to do a more traditional style of healing, as I wanted to make a more traditional party where there's a tank, you have your casters, and then you have a healer. So essentially making it that he can focus on healing while Valdrax doesn't need to focus on that, can focus on damage, and Seraph can just blow away as many bad guys as possible. So a lot of the things in terms of cards and levels and abilities I picked are for more damage, more healing, things along those lines, as Ted has some pretty cool abilities overall. With Ted and my healing squared away, at this point I needed to find someone who was going to help Valdrax out on the front line, so ended up kind of choosing the Summoner, because I thought, you know what, they can just put a bunch of people on the field to take damage with him, so this is our Straza, where they're going to help Valdrax by just putting a bunch of stuff on the field. They'll take damage, he'll be able to deal a bunch of damage, so basically let her assist in the front lines while being in the back. So at this point, it was an interesting choice of 15 perk points from completed battle goals, but sometimes the battle goals were tricky. Sometimes they also aren't possible and you don't know until you go in. So I ended up picking one where her goal is to do 3 missions in the Dagger Forest. As well as with Ted, she gets to level up a ton. So with her focus being kind of frontliner tanky, what I ended up trying to do is find things that could keep her herself up so her summons can stay alive, and then basically pick things that are going to help her summon stuff, because she's going to need to bring a bunch of allies onto the battlefield, have them up, be able to keep her sustain up so she can keep herself up while she's got all these summons on the board, as well as not, run out of cards. So she's going to have to long rest, heal between those long rests. So started just kind of picking things for summons to work with on different missions. For her perks, I tried to focus on more getting out -1 cards and adding some wounds and poisons to the mix. The reason being is that she's going to have a bunch of summons out there trying to help Valdrax. She's going to need a lot of things to actually try and bop things and do damage and assist him in getting the health down so he can stay up. So try to kind of build towards that so she doesn't miss as much, because summons don't typically have a lot of attack damage. With that, that's the end of the episode. Thank you all for sticking around. I do appreciate this. I know that it's not one of my standard ones. I completely borked the audio. Don't know how I did that, but you can see I'm rambling like a madman and nothing's coming out. Nothing at all. A lot happened though. Fluffles retired. We unlocked a lot of missions. Ted and Astara joined the party, and it's going to be great. We're going to wreck some stuff. Thank you all so much for watching. I do really appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. See you in the next one.